Hello everyone, it's Kevin and welcome back to another one-stop programming video for absolute beginners on Python. In the last tutorial we went over user input and types. And in this video we're going to go over Booleans and conditionals. So we're not actually going to start out using the PyCharm IDE, we're going to start out in the Python console. So I'm going to go ahead and launch that using the method we talked about in the last video. I'm just going to type Python down here and launch the desktop app, and voila, I have the Python console. So in the last video, I introduced the string type and the integer type. And now I'm going to introduce a third type, which is the Boolean type. Now the Boolean type is very simple, but critical. The Boolean type can either be true or it can be false. Those are the logical values that are stored within a Boolean. Now in Python, a Boolean is expressed with an uppercase letter, either uppercase true with an uppercase T or uppercase false with an uppercase F. For example, true and false. So we get our Boolean value of true and our Boolean value of false. Now that's all well and good, but we need to be able to operate on our Boolean values to be able to get anything out of them. That's what makes programming so exciting, is we can, operate on these Boolean values. And if we couldn't do that, we wouldn't be able to do anything, let alone turn our computers on. How do we operate? How do we compare our Booleans together? We do those with what are called logical operators, and there's quite a few of them. We've got equals, not equals, less than, greater than, less than or equal to, and greater than or equal to. So let's jump right in and play around with those. Let's start with the equals logical operator. So let's start with true equals true. Note that I'm using double equals here, and I'm going to explain why in a second. If I press enter, I get true back. This is just a fundamental truth with these basic Boolean logical operations here. True equals true, that is true, and we return true here. So we can think of this whole statement as simplifying to just the single Boolean of true. Keep that in mind as we go forward. This simplifying and becoming a single Boolean value. All right, so next let's use the not equals to operator. So let's do true does not equal false. And that's true. True is not the same thing as false. So we get the result back of true. Now what if we tried true equals false? We get false back because that's just not true. Why are we using the equals operator here? What would happen if I tried to say true equals true? What do we think is going to happen? If you said it's going to blow up, you're correct. It blew up. Now why did it blow up? Well, it says we have a syntax error. Can't assign to keyword. Well, what does that mean? So we have the keywords here, true and true. And as we saw in the previous video, we can do things like my var equals 1. We're going to assign the value of 1 into this variable called my var using the assignment operator, which is the single equal sign. So what this really means is it's trying to assign the Boolean value of true into, through the assignment operator, the keyword of true, and it's saying I can't change the meaning of true. I could have also tried to say true equals false, which would be basically trying to say I want to change all of the instances of true to false, which just wouldn't make sense, so it doesn't let you do it. And thankfully it doesn't let you do that because that would be really weird. So that's why we use the double equals operator, because we already use the single equals for assignment. All right, so let's mess around with some of the other logical operators. So with the less than and greater thans and equals tos, let's just start off with a really hard one. A less than B. Now you're probably saying, Kevin, I don't even you're trying to less than or 2 letters, like what are you even trying to do? Of course that's not going to work. Turns out that's true. And now you're probably like, well, how is that true? On what basis of fact is that? Well, turns out that letters are actually just numbers if you are talking to the computer. The computer doesn't care that this is, a string. It's going to try to compare it using its actual numeric representation. Now, this is kind of confusing, so don't try to extrapolate this into other aspects, but this is useful in that you can compare strings knowing this, and by referencing the ASCII values of characters, which you can get by going to ASCIItable.com or just Googling ASCII values. So if we look over here in this far right-hand column, we see that we've got A and we've got B. And we see over here in this left-hand part, the decimal DEC value of A is 97, and the decimal value of B is 98. So if we go back to Python here, we see that 97 is less than 98. That's true. And that's basically what that's doing here. You can use this to your advantage for sorting strings, but we're not going to get into any more of that right now. We're going to just use numbers going forward. So 1 less than 1, that's false, because 1 isn't less than 1. 1 is equal to 1. 1 less than 0, also false, because 1 is greater than 0. 1 less than 2, yes, 2 is larger than 1, is therefore less than 1, so we have true. Now we could do 1 is less than or equal to 1, and that's true. Conversely, we could do 1 is greater than 1, false for the same reason. It's equal to 1, so it can't be greater than it if it is equal. Or we could do 1 greater than 2, also false. And I think you guys get the idea, and I won't go on, but I will show you the 1 less than or equal to 1 operator, and that is true. Now, what would happen if I wanted to compare more than one of these at the same time? What if I wanted to do multiple Boolean operations, multiple logical operations at once? Simple. You can just use the Python keywords and or. Sorry if that was confusing. And/or. Let me show you what I mean. True equals true and true. So what this is going to do is this is going to evaluate this first and say, is true logically equal to true? It is. So this will evaluate to true. And then we're going to do a logical AND with the value of true. So AND basically means if the value on the left is true and the value on the right is true, then this whole thing will simplify to true. I press enter, and that's correct. If I did the same thing but and false, that's false. Conversely, I could try or, and that's true because it's going to evaluate true equals true, which is true, and it's going to be like true or, well, it's true, so it's not even going to evaluate this false part because it already knows it's true. Conversely, if I had true equals false or false, that will be false because both sides of the or do evaluate to false. So I could go on forever and ever with different comparisons and Boolean expressions, but that would take a very long time, as you can take entire courses on Boolean expressions and simplification. We've already spent 10 minutes on this. We're going to go in and we're going to jump into making our calculator be able to utilize what we've just learned. let's modify our calculator to ask the user what it wants to do, whether we want to add, subtract, multiply, or divide, and then use conditionals and Booleans to only do what they want to do. So I'm going to introduce 3 more keywords as we're programming here. So bear with me. If you're confused, please feel free to watch the last couple minutes again and try to get a better understanding of what the Booleans are doing and how they simplify. Let's ask the user, after we get num1 and num2, let's ask them what they want to do. So let's call this operation equals input. What do you want to do? And we'll give them options of add, subtract, multiply, and divide. Okay. So now we're going to ask the user what they want to do, and we're going to give them, the options that we have available in our calculator. Now we need to check what the value of operation is. So we're going to do an if operation equals, logical equals, using 2 equal signs, the string add, then we're going to put a colon, then we're going to go on to a new line, and this will need to be indented. Notice PyCharm does this for us. We will do our print, add num1 and num2. So let's go ahead and delete that new line. And so now we have if operation is equal to add, print, add num1, num2. So we're going to go on to a new line, and I'm going to backspace. So now I'm on the original indentation level with the if. And I'm going to type elif, E-L-I-F, and then in parentheses, operation equals, quote, subtract, then on the outside of the quote, colon, new line, and actually I'm just going to bring up our subtract from down here, and notice it will indent it automatically for us in line with that the previous print from add. Notice how these are indented on the same line. So then we're going to hit enter again. We're going to do elif a third time. This time we're going to do operation equals, multiply. Don't forget a colon after that, onto a new line, and we'll bring up our multiplication print statement. We're going to do another elif for operation equals divide. We're not going to forget the colon. We're going to indent our divide. Now we're going to do one last keyword out on this original indentation level with our ifs and elifs, and that's else, colon. And notice how we're not doing a Boolean evaluation. This is basically, if any of these things up here are not true, we are going to print I don't understand, because they typed something that our calculator doesn't know how to do. Let's review this real quick. If operation is add, we're going to print add. Else if, that's what elif means, operation equals subtract, we'll print our subtraction. Elif operation is multiply, we'll print our multiplication. Elif operation divide, we'll print divide. Else, literally any other input, we're going to print I don't understand. Now let's go ahead and run that real quick and make sure it works. What is number 1? It's 5. What is number 2? It's also 5. What do we want to do? Let's add. So I'll type ADD. I'll press enter, and we're going to get 10. If I run this again, and I type what is number 1, 10, and 12, press enter. Let's subtract, get -2, which is our expected result. And it looks like our calculator is working and, much more interactive with the user. Let's try it one more time with some gibberish. What is number 1, 1, 1, and then some gibberish. I don't understand. Isn't a valid operation. So it just prints I don't understand, and it finishes out. As a challenge for you guys between this video and the next one, why don't you go ahead and modify this program to, instead of asking for a string, add, subtract, multiply, divide, why don't you ask for a number? So let's say, what would you like to do? 1, add, 2, subtract, 3, multiply, 4, divide. Now remember to parse that to an int and change these down here to evaluate to those integers instead of our strings that we provided. In the next episode, we're going to look at exceptions, which is basically what happens when Python blows up and gives us an error. We're going to learn how to deal with that so our program doesn't crash. We're also going to look at loops so we can make our calculator go forever until the user says, I'm done doing calculations and I want to quit. All right, thanks for watching. I'm Kevin from kjdElectronics. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.